Somké.
I'm Jay, and I'm here with the Hall of Famer, the best ref in Street Beefs, an undefeated fighter, the one and only.
Okay. And shit, man, we have a phenomenal new guest, new fighter, all the way from StreetBeefs West Coast, the one, the only Seeker in the building.
Good evening to you both.
How you doing, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. It's been a fun experience and a cool journey.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And speaking of experiences, you had your first StreetBeefs West Coast experience last month, correct?
Yeah. It's the Smoke Ranch, correct? On the 24th.
Sir.
It was beautiful. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's fun for opportunities like that, especially with it all being so new, that I think those are the times in life where you're living it and it feels kind of like a movie, or while you're in it, you're really appreciating like how special it is. And I don't know if that wears off over time. The more fights you have, obviously, like it draws a crowd of people that are, how do you say, like very loyal to it, probably for part of those chemicals. But it was definitely a blast.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the fight itself, I wanted to kind of get an idea of like, what made you say, hey, man, I want to start the year off fighting and I want to do it on YouTube with StreetBeefs?
I'm trying to think whatever Disney movie that is with the squirrels and the dog, but it feels like that's me creatively. I think that something I've wanted to do, whoever knows what a writer decides to write about when they become a writer. And for me, all of life is trying to put something in a vein of like, what's an artistic way to like chronicle this, or anything that's like movie, television experience. And I tried to think, when people got in like a YouTube sense of mind, one of my brothers said like, oh, what is your brand? And I never had a great time focusing down onto whatever that would be. And I didn't ever want to call myself something branded as like a human. So I said, this was something, and I'll make it relate faster, just to have a friend who was associated with it. I knew nothing about it. I saw it. I said, that looks really interesting and really cool. And for my curiosities, I think I just threw out to him like, hey, like, how long does it take to go from zero to this or whatever? And he just kind of gave me like, oh, jump in the Facebook group. You can put your name in this way. To be very lucky to be selected. Spur of the moment, I guess, to answer the question. I have a lot of interests going on all the time. It sounded fun. It sounded exciting. I think at my age, it's me trying to like get a litmus of where I am vitality wise, if I can still hang, you know.
Yeah.
All those things combined together. And it was just something I had never done before, so it seemed interesting.
That's what's up, man. Takes a lot of guts, man. You know, a lot of times you see the guy or you hear the guy, oh, I could do that, you know. And it sounds so easy, but to actually get up, take the time out, you know, some guys are out there training for the first time ever, you know. Some guys are coming right off the couch. But you know, to show up and to get in that ring, it says something about yourself, you know, for sure. Um, did you grow up fighting? Where are you from, and you know, how was your come up?
I hail from the great city of Riverside, California, in the Inland Empire. I would guess, like, in the ethos or the community that I grew up within, there's a little bit of a grit there. Like, you definitely were not allowed to get away with being soft, um, from a very young age. And I don't want to come in here because I feel like this city was painted that way for so long and be like, it was hood as shit, and I didn't like getting punked in grade school. So you always had to have some type of edge anyway. But I think for a lot of people, uh, I'm trying to think of the last time I actually was able to like get physical, or like the first time in life when you turn on that switch. And really, it was like at 17 at a house party, and I got to brawl a little bit for the first time. And I don't know if you're lucky enough and you get out of there feeling like you won or did well, then it immediately gives you that curiosity of like, oh, maybe I am good at this. To like jump in with no experience and then go in a group of people, and what you were saying, like some of these people are first time. For somebody from the unknown, the element is that when you get there, you're like, ooh, maybe there's people like me. And then you see a couple of people where you're like, ooh, that guy looks like he could kill people with his bare hands. That's like a fun unknown factor, because prior to like getting in the ring, I don't know if this person's going to tune me up or if they feel the same way I feel. So I would say like I got in a couple of scuffles in the high school era and shortly thereafter. I didn't really ever get into like fight training or a gym or anything formally. I met Caleb when I was younger, or Coyote, and he was, I think, giving lessons at the local boxing gym. So I did like a week with him there. But other than that, I just came back and it was something I wanted to do. I think throughout my high school era, which was like 05 to 08, I don't know if that's like the MMA heyday, or like if there was just a lot of glory, or it was blowing up seemingly at that time. So I think there's something charming about that too, as the draw for it. But I wish I could say like from a young age, I've been really cutting away at the wood here, trying to become the best fighter I could. I think there's like a human element to where you always kind of got to be a little ready just to operate in the world. And then somewhere on the spectrum is how much you want to invest time and effort wise. So it was nice to, like I said, at 35 or whatever, to throw it back in there and see like if I can still hang. And part of it that really woke me up is I want to be in much better shape than I was in going into that in general. So it was a nice wake up call and an experience to go, oh man, especially watching the other like 12 or 15 fights and going, it could be any of these people at any given time that is a competition I might have to face, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then 2005-ish for the UFC, I would agree that that was like the golden age, because they were all talented and they're all trained. I don't want to like take away, but now it's just leveled up. So in 2005, it was the dogs. It was Nate Diaz. It was Carlos Condon. It was Manny Gambarian. Like those were the guys out there, straight dogs that like grew up rough, right? So you watch them and you're like, okay, these guys grew up in the, you know, fighting. Now it's a different type of UFC. Yeah, there's still those guys, but then you got different guys who were like in college and were like, oh, I'm going to just go to UFC because I'm a great wrestler. And then they learn and go from there. So I think, yeah, that was the golden age. It was dogs. And it kind of fits. I ain't been to Riverside, but I got my friend SK who been out to Riverside, lived out there. I've heard some stories. So you guys had it rough. You grew up in the roughneck time. I don't know how old you are, but like I'm old. I'm 47. So like I remember UFC from the start, and I would agree that the 2005 was around the golden age for for me too.
Yeah. I don't know if that, like, when it hits the mainstream of television and like an ESPN type of deal, that, or maybe it was me being 18 and developmentally as a man, that's when you're like, okay, who is the toughest people on earth and how do I emulate that? But I think there was a lot going on the same way, I think, as it relates at all. Right before that, it was like poker. Like Texas Hold'em had a blow up for some reason. Fighting has just stuck around along. But they had that first camp of what seemed to be like the Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell style, like superstars. And I don't know if that type of esteem fizzles out over time or if it was just the perfect pocket era between, like, they had grown the sport enough, funded it enough, but you didn't have to be a total expert to be a fan, I think. There was less to follow, seemingly.
Yeah, they've gotten so good that it makes it harder. Like, if you don't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you don't understand a lot of the stuff that's happening in the ground game, that kind of thing. I get it. But with you growing up in Riverside, you know, not wanting to get bullied, whatever, and you have these street fights, how is that so much different, though, than when you start training? How is that different for you? How is it a different mindset when you went into the cage than you would have had on the street?
I would like to say that when I went into the cage, I was thoughtful and processed, and it wasn't the exact same. Like, I didn't just start throwing windmills. It was interesting. So the part of the story, shout out to Coach Freddie Johnson, I had put my name in the hat to do the fight. And I pretty much just had a membership at 24 Hour Fitness. So I just got some gloves and started hitting the heavy bag by myself. And this guy came over and was like, hey, I'm doing a little class over here. Why don't you join us? Which I thought was interesting enough. But one of the things that I think is most interesting about this whole process, and as to what Somké was saying about showing up and having it be a process, like you have a training period. Every fight, as it relates to what you're saying, every scrap in high school was somebody got pissed off or we were drinking and you did the best you could. There wasn't a period of a month where I'm going like, oh, are you skipping that run today? And is that the run you're skipping that's going to get you beat the shit out of a month from now? And then to actually, I think as it pertains to what I was saying about the MMA at that time or the UFC at that time, there was a rift between people that were like traditional boxing fans, I think, where I grew up, and then people that were into MMA. So boxing kind of, for being the general mainstream, got positioned downward. So when I first started training with this guy, Freddie, and just to have somebody give you like your first day of class explaining what strikes are what and like the purpose of a combo and how to move, it immediately is like a night and day difference of, oh, you actually have to think of something other than just hit this person in the head as hard as you can. So adding a strategy element, I lucked out because when I was in high school, I was like 6'1" and 220. I think it gave me some advantage. Not that I was ever positioned against anybody that was that big of a difference. But the first day I go in on the bags with the coach and have the gloves and like just trying to get sequences or combos as he's calling them out, it's like homework instead of sitting there whistling, you know, relative to a brawl and like, oh, you're actually supposed to have some type of form and thinking about a time period. I think anytime I got in a scrap that was like at a house party or whatever, one time we were very outnumbered. So it really was like fighting 4 people at once, but there was enough like, how do you say this? There was enough dignity to where people were kind of coming in one at a time. But even then, it's like roll around for a while, try to put somebody in the gutter, punch them against the curb, and then out of nowhere, because you're half drunk, it's somebody else and you're trying to do the same thing. To actually have like, okay, I have a 2-minute period, and within that 2 minutes, I have this much gas. I'm hoping for this much of a miracle as far as like energy in the tank when it's depleted. And then having never done it before, it's like you don't even have the actual experience of am I going to be done in 30 seconds and have to coast, or do I play the 30 seconds and then come in? Never having had to think about that in anything like a street fight, and then going in and having to plan that. Cardio is key. Oh man. And I ran marathons for like 12 years. Cardio wise, I am not at the height of my game. So even going in there is like part of the story I'm trying to live this year, is climbing back into the shape where you don't get tired at all. And I really, envy is not the word, but I admire the people that are training hard enough to where you don't have to think about your breath at all. And you can do nothing but sit there and try to throw your little string combos together and what movements pair with what.
Do you think training for a marathon and training for a fight, do they go hand in hand, or would it be the quick burst, do you think it help? I mean, it would definitely help, but if you're training just for a fight, do you think you would have to train differently than you do for a marathon, or do you think the training would be the same?
I wish I gave myself enough credit to say I ever trained well. Cardio-wise, I think it's interesting because marathon training, you just run, man. It's like your brain is off. Just putting music in and going as long as you can, and then trying to find strength every time you're tired. When it came to the training sessions I had leading up to this fight, it's like a whole different world because you're scheduling. Somebody else is showing up. Sometimes it's a small group class. Sometimes it's one-on-one. The location is doing different things. I'm still trying to like balance going into this. How much do I need to be on the bags or on the mitts compared to how many days can I just go for a run? I remember I told Coach Freddie, I was like, hey, I'm going to take it light today. I'm just going to go do yoga. And because maybe I had a couple of too many Zen years, but I played ice hockey, and like being loose, there was nothing that felt like it gave you more ability to do the things you wanted to do than having like good flexibility and some of the strength disciplines I think that are in yoga. But long story short, he's just like, the fuck are you trying to do yoga going into a fight for? So not knowing on either end, I'm like, he's the expert. He obviously knows. I obviously have my opinion on something like mobility and flexibility and some of those things that seem a little more, how do you say, like rudimentary or like less important as trying to get big and strong or trying to be fast, is like taking the time to do these finite mobility things. Hopefully that's going to pay off the one time you need it. But trying to factor all that in, and then having somebody who's trying to, like running, I don't have anybody telling me this is how you're supposed to do what I'm thinking and trying to like convey that information. So there's a lot of times if I'm taking drills with the coach, I'm doing it completely fucking wrong because I have an idea and his idea is completely different. And then doing something cohesive with another human where it's like, I know what you want out of me. I also know there's a part of me that's like, I'm going to try to make this my style a little bit, like trying to figure out where the barrier is that you balance that. I think all of those mental factors are just things that like run training would never have to be with.
Yeah. I got to agree, man. It's a completely different sport.
How does... Oh, sorry, Somké.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say it's a completely different sport. So I mean, you know, when you're racing someone versus fighting someone, there's so many more elements you got to deal with within the fight, you know, that simply running forward doesn't encompass, you know. And you know, because I used to run back in elementary, so I know it helps to have that foundation. You know, but I was training a friend of mine a couple of days ago, Baby Broly, and I'm like, you know, running cardio and punching cardio is two different things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Your mental cardio is different from your punch cardio, you know? So it's like all those things are factors that got to be keyed in when it comes to training, I believe.
The
But
plan, what you're saying, especially, is like the breathing element, because running is like if you have your tactic or your technique on your inhale, exhale, where it falls in your stride, generally it just stays the same the whole time. So the real active, like, open up the nos a little bit to make an old man Fast and Furious reference, but it's like, how much of this can I let out? How much do I need to draw back? Having watched the fight now, there's a couple of times I look and see, I can tell when I'm like, maybe I should have made an offensive move and I retreated for like a breath and a regather, and being my first fight, I don't know. It was not a full 3 rounds either. So hopefully I will be able to do another one in the future. And that element of how to use your cardio to most effectively deliver hard punches instead of just how do I get out of here without puking.
what you were gonna say, Jay? Yeah,
I was wondering though, how does okay? Yeah, I was wondering. I grew up playing hockey also, but I come from the Midwest. We have snow everywhere. How does somebody from California end up playing hockey?
It was a weird pack. We did have a friend who just, like, his older brother, I think when Gretzky came to LA in 93 was like kind of their era. So there was a small pocket of hockey fans. And when I turned 18, a bunch of us that graduated high school were kind of just looking for something to do as a group. And the guy that was kind of the ringleader of our crew, he took us all to LA for a couple of Kings games. We all fell in love with it. And then like 6 or 7 of us just to start playing at the same time. And I really fell in love with it. It was kind of my intro to doing anything. If you were to put this all encompassing into like a world of fitness or anything competitive that's tied into fitness, hockey was the first thing that made me start like eating healthy, thinking that cardio or running. I really only did marathons because I wanted to be good at hockey. I did not aspire just to go run a bunch. But it was just one guy that was in an older generation that kind of passed it down. The Kings had a couple of good years when we were here, and right when I got into it, they started winning championships. I do envy your ability to get out and play like some pond hockey or do it the right way, because it's very expensive when you're in Southern California to find a sheet of ice. But I think if you've played the passion of it, I think the same way that I'm kind of like getting this intro to fighting now is a group element that keeps you in shape, where you get to compete and try to get better at something. It has so many like very charming elements to it that I think would be really cool. And I would encourage anybody, if you're not, like, do it, sign up, put your name in the hat. The worst thing that happens is you have like an amazing experience you're going to remember your whole life. And I've really, I think, like, fallen in love with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, there's a lag, and I thought you were done, but you weren't, so continue. Sorry.
I am so long-winded, and tell me to shut up whenever I need to, because I know I make everything 10 minutes long that should be 2. But I was just talking about what I think is the coolest element of getting involved with Street Beefs. It was fun, and there's no way, if you know nothing about boxing and you went and stood next to that ring for one event day, there's no way you couldn't walk away thinking that you didn't just like stumble onto a new art form. I think it's like, this would be stupid because I've just done a little bit of everything. I used to dance competitively when I was like very young. And I always admired it. I think especially in like my 20s, I moved to a place where if you were a dude, you weren't supposed to dance. And then the neighborhood that I'm from, I'm like, oh, you mean people that are scared? Boxing is like the coolest, most masculine, highest stakes way of turning like something dance art form into something that's like, there's an extreme element that you could get your nose broken if you take the wrong step. I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm really jazzed about it, getting into it, because now, like I said, meeting this guy at the gym who is a coach, he's like introduced me to a couple of other gyms that are local. I got to go to one with Coyote that was like one of the coolest layouts ever. I did a little bit of like video footage of him and the coach he has there. And then once you realize all these pockets after talking to 619 and then now seeing like his feed and coming through and seeing the places that he trains, I'm like, oh, this is one of those things that if this is your passion, you could find it anywhere. And the community is like very about it and very friendly and very cool. To think if you traveled everywhere, yeah, it's very cool. To think if you traveled a lot and that you could just do like pick up a spar on a Friday night if you were out of town.
Yeah.
I never imagined that, and I didn't know it was around. And now that I see it, it's a whole new world. It's really cool.
Journeyman. What you were gonna say, Jay? You had something earlier.
I was just going to ask you, so when I was watching your fight, it seemed like, I don't know, by the end of the first round, into the second round, you really loosened up. Did you feel that? Like, it felt like you loosened up and you felt more comfortable. Did you feel that, or how'd that go for you?
There was one moment that I remembered on the day of that was like a real defining, and exactly what you're talking about with my, how do I say, like my resume or my experience being 0 rounds, and then the first round kind of being mayhem. The second round was kind of where I first had like settled into watching his actions and reactions, which logically sounds really stupid because it's like, hey, you should do that from the beginning if you plan on having a good day. But I think just the practicality of taking your first fight, maybe that's just part of the learning process, is that what you think is me settling into it, that the first moment of me just not being full chemical reaction kind of barbarian, I think. And that's when it really got beautiful. Was there was a time that I can't remember if I was just throwing like some straight punch, and then I realized every time I'd piece him a little bit, I'd get just as much. I did that twice. And then on the third one, I was like, I wonder if he'll do it the same way. So I pump faked it, and he did. And I was like, oh, this is how you like unlock people and open them up. And if that ever, like, between me realizing that and the end of the fight was a very short piece of time. But now that if I go forward into it, I will know that from the beginning. It seems that maybe the journey is just like a very long settling into who you are as like your style and your fighter type. And every fight that you take gets you there. Maybe it's a never-ending road.
I would say it is. If you choose to do this lifelong, it's a never end. But also too, what you're experiencing is like your first few hours, right? So like it's all new because it's your first few hours on the board. You know, now once you've logged in 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, it becomes a different type of story. But you know, when it's when you're in the infancy of like what you're doing or what you know, this new walk of life, right? This new whatever this is to you, it's brand new at this point, you know. So things are fresh. You're learning, you're adapting, and just like you just mentioned, you know, you figured out how to do something by the end of the fight. You now can utilize that in the next fight. That's how it goes. That's being a student of the game. You know, being a student of the game, you'll be, you know, collecting all types of attributes and, you know, power-ups and items and, you know, armors, and, you know, you customize yourself. You know what I mean? That's at least how I look at it, you know, but it's a forever thing, you know, and you just look at the board and you see your time and you're like, okay, you know, but at the same time, something I've experienced and I've witnessed in other fighters, it doesn't matter how much time you got on that board, you got to stay consistent, because the moment you stop everything that you've earned can revert back, you know, and you can find yourself, you know, somewhere close to square one. So, you know, it really is a forever journey, you know. Let me not be long-winded anymore. I wanted to, before we get deep into the actual fight, what was it like driving up there, getting to the event, and then, you know, your wait, the build up until your fight? You know, what was that like? You get on site, on location. What was that like for you, seeing the other fighters, the cage?
There's an epoch that's like the 2 days leading up to it, and I've done myself no favors at all. That just stuff like trying to figure out if you're going to do a turnaround trip or booking a room, trying to figure out if someone's going to go. I was going to have the coach come out with me. Plans changed like the day before, and then I'm switching things. So I would say even on par with like I had bought some 14-ounce gloves and needed some 12, so I had to Amazon it like next day in the morning before X time. It felt very chaotic. And then as soon as I left, and it ended up just being me solo headed out there, even to come from the direction, like if you're from Southern California, you go to Vegas, you're on the 15 all the time. But when you take that cut through Baker, there's something like symbolic to this desolate road that you always went by but never actually took. And then now you're taking it into parts unknown. All that was really cool. I was excited because I stayed at the Nugget and was able to like not have to wake up at 3 a.m. to drive out and kind of settle. So it was a fun experience. I tried to put myself to bed early enough. The excitement, I don't know if everybody gets this on their first time. You can't control the spirits, I guess, but they woke me up at like 2 a.m. And I was just thrilled the whole time through. So trying to figure out little nuances, like what do you eat before a fight? Like a little water, maybe some electrolytes. Are you going to try to risk a little like sustenance? Do you want a full ass meal? So those were just like some of the mental elements, but pulling up was cool. I had mentioned it prior, but there's like, I got there early enough. There might have been like one car out front, and then you see people kind of trickle in, 3 or 4 cars. And then after there's 5 cars, somebody knows somebody else. So people start like coming out together and kind of congregating. And then pretty soon it's like everybody. So there's like an interesting, like animal environment of humans to be like, what is the flow that's going to get everybody out here talking? And then the people that came out solo. I was encouraged by the fact that there was a lot of other people that were in a boat like me that were just like out there by themselves and hadn't known anybody, or maybe that was their first time and they had just jumped in the group. It's cool to realize that's going on when you're seeing groups of people, and your first assumption might be like, oh, all these people are boys. They all know each other. Maybe they train together. So like the little waiting in the lobby element before they actually like had everybody come in the yard. I think that's a cool social aspect anyway. And what I'm kind of realizing about this pocket and this community is like a community sense that I move around a lot. So I don't think that I don't have it at all. But throughout the years, it's like my hometown is my hometown. When I'm not there, I don't have 20 or 30 people to cut it up with on whatever, you know. So to meet people that are in a group that is that, and it's, I would say this, like it's almost removed. You know, you leave your town to go to the place where this is. So there's no question of like, are people passionate about this? It's like everybody is there, and they love this shit. This is an amazing day for everybody. Those emotions going in were really cool. To watch you guys all put it together and do like, I was telling somebody yesterday because they were asking about the matchups. I was like, yeah, I thought they were really amazing across the board. And to be able to do that on the fly, come outside, set everything up when you get there, run everybody and make perfect matchups across the board, and then run it and get it all done it was like a really impressive feat to watch accomplished. That had some cool charm to it. I like that a couple of the people had some merch you could pick up. A fun experience, and having the actual cage with like a good floor on it and everything set up nice. It's so much cooler than anything when I was a kid that was like somebody's backyard and some bungee cords on some like angle iron.
It was rugged. It was rugged. Not too long ago.
Yeah. Well, I came in the golden era, I'm sure, because I think even for me, I enjoy it. I'm not out here like looking for the scrap anymore with my age on the street, so I wouldn't say it that way. But I've always enjoyed going hands anytime I ever had to. So to come into an element where when the ring looks official and the production is dope and they have a Hall of Fame ref, shout out, where everything looks legit. I think that what I learned living and working in LA, like a lot of life and the value is production value and those small intricacies that make it look legitimate. And you start realizing the stuff you saw on TV when you were a kid that looked larger than life and was big and was magic. And then you see elements like that as it's coming to be what it is, with like sweet merchandise and a sick ring that looks legit. And shout out to Pahrump that there's like a cool Western charm element to seeing like the painted desert backgrounds or like the snow-capped mountain. I think all of that is really cool, and it's fun to watch you guys build something creatively that has those elements and then kind of brings in something that I don't think, like, it wasn't as available before because you couldn't just put stuff like that seemingly wherever you want and then get good high quality video coverage and have people come together as a collective where like the ideas are rising to the top. And even things like being on these podcasts, it's fun to see the creativity of people, especially per their like community and group and what you guys are doing for fighting. Everybody I've talked to that I mentioned it to already knew who you were. And I thought that was really cool too. I had a couple people that like sent me a DM message when I put up my little fight poster. They're like, dude, you're going on there? And I'm like, oh, I didn't. Hell yeah.
Hey, man. Well, first and foremost, we appreciate you and your time. But also, you know, it's a community and it's a collective. You know, it's not one person. It's a many of people. And, you know, ultimately, like you witnessed, it's people who want to do this, people who care about this, and who want to be there. And you know, it shows. It shows in, you know, the growth over the years, as well as, you know, the community that you see when you're there. You know, the fellowship that you experience when you're there. It's really not like anything else, you know. So it's really good. Go ahead.
The community you're talking about, that's the most palpable out of the whole entire experience, is the people that you made a connection with while you were there, because obviously you can't you're not going to spend side by side with every single person, but the people that you do become memorable characters. And when they're built around that passion, it's like, it's fun to see something that's put on like completely by the love of the group and not something that's like my Los Angeles experiences where it's like, the people putting on the show are a business. To see something that's like funded by passion and the creativity of the love, that group of people is it. And the number of people, I think your first day you go, whether it's nerves or excitement, fear, the unknown, whatever you want to call it, the fact that there's 5 people that already empathize with that, will seek you out, build you up, you know, to like whatever level is believable. That feels like, especially for people that are on the road alone, like that's the closest to love that you get. And I think that's a really cool element that you would find that somewhere that people are trying to punch your eyeball out, you know. Mm-hmm. Charming, for sure.
Well, one of the things I feel like I appreciate about you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you really embrace the journey. And I don't think it's just the journey of fighting. I think from what I'm getting from you is you embrace the journey of life. you really take a moment to like take things in. And I think we all need to do that more. Is that something you consciously do, or is that something you've just done your whole life?
I have I've had a fortunate, how do I say, like an odd enough array for a background. I have worked like very corporate jobs. I've worked for the government, and I've done like really cool adventure vacation style, like kayak tour guide type stuff. So some of these things, I guess you get magnetized towards what you think is the things that are most meaningful. And who's to know what those things are until you live them, I'm sure. And then there's like a subject element that I'm sure they are what they are to other people. I definitely try to plan things that I think are if not necessarily out of a comfort zone, at least like exciting and intriguing enough. One of the beauties of deciding to do this was like, in a spectrum of things that could have happened, me getting the shit kicked out of me publicly very early on and being embarrassed amidst my small community of friends would have been like a worst case. Best case would have been me looking like a anime knockout or whatever. But the cool thing was that within that spectrum, I knew there was no way that I could do this, have the experience of it, like the leverage of how much time I put into it. I wouldn't say was smart, but I'm excited that I did. There's no way that it wasn't going to be like a memorable, lifelong thing. I do seek those things out, I guess, to answer your question. And to know how many of those things you should seek out compared to how much like normal stability you should have or putting roots in or what have you. I definitely try to tell myself I'm not just balancing towards fun, exciting, creative shit all the time, but that's really, I'm trying to stack up enough of those to look back at my life and go, hey, it wasn't the most boring thing ever.
I like that a lot. That's
trying.
kind of something I had in mind with my fights, looking back when I'm old and gray and like, kind of like, yeah, I did that. I remember that era.
Yeah.
I remember those times, I noticed you used the word seek twice. You also go by the fight name Seeker. How did we come up with the name Seeker? Was that pre-planned? Was that on the spot?
This will be a fun element because I try to be deeper than I need to be for no reason. And whoever knows if it is me sounding like an idiot or the truth. But I grew up a Harry Potter fan. It was like for the time that I was in school, reading that level of book was the release. It was obviously like a global phenomenon.
I was joking.
But here's the thing is like, as it pertains to the philosophical side of what we were talking about for looking for these experiences, there's something that I think everybody goes through, which is like looking for whatever they think their truth is in this life. And there's so much ambiguity built into the word truth, but like some purpose or some meaning or what are you doing with your minutes? I think everybody kind of looks for something. As it relates directly to the name, and the reason I thought it was like creative was that I have had a life with like a lot of very rich experiences, but moving around a lot, you have to sacrifice a lot. Like the friends you had for 15, 20 years, if you leave and fall out of regularity, you get into acquaintance territory. You lose a lot of ties into things. Part of you, you never lose your hometown, but the more you live other places and pick up new elements of new different cultures and types of people, it like shifts you and you change along the road. I don't personally have a lot of friends from my hometown that played their 20s and like early 30s the way I did. And the idea of the Seeker in Harry Potter as a Quidditch reference is that like it's a competitive team sport and everybody on the team is kind of doing the same thing, But the fact is, all the players are doing one thing, and one player is doing something completely different. And the fact that that player is doing something completely different doesn't like diminish the value of what he's doing. He actually is the person that has the most sway over how the game goes in the beginning or the end. And I guess it's how I justify to myself living a life different than most people do, I think, traditionally, as far as like trying to root down and save. And I have family aspirations, I really do. But I played a wild man card in my mid-20s that you're not going to settle down when you're moving on the road that much. So as pertaining to the Seeker as a name, I just decided that the way I was playing the game might be different than what everybody else was doing. But as a matter of faith, I was going to believe that what I was doing was actually going to be the thing that leads me to the greatest, I don't want to say glory, but to being most impactful. And hopefully, if there is a team that I'm a part of ever, that the things that I do off on my own that are different than the rest of the group are going to be the thing that really brings us the W in the end.
Well, you just using Harry Potter's name got you a fan for life because I'm a Harry Potter nerd. So there we go.
He's kind of my hero. You know, I think of a lot of stories where at the end the guy's got to die or move on to the next realm. And for me, I was like, Harry Potter plays sports and does well at it. Couple of hot girlfriends along the way. And at the end, he ends up married with kids and not dead. So I said, that's a life I could model after, hopefully.
I feel it. I feel it.
There you go. I like it.
Speaking of getting the dub, you mentioned getting the dub as well. We got the dub in our first fight last month. You know, we've talked about various things tonight, but let's get to the actual fight. You know, I refereed that fight, and just coming off of the initial judgment, when I saw you throw your hands up versus your opponent throwing his hands up, just your guard, I said, oh no. You know, I was like, oh no, this doesn't look good. And you know, upon rewatching the fight, man, you landed the very first significant strike. You popped him pretty good early on, that first 10 seconds, and looked like it rocked him. Talk to me about this fight, man.
I think it was really cool because you get so swept in the day of watching everybody come together, everything we just talked about that leads up to the moment that you fight. But there's a big, like, multi-hour window of me sitting there watching fights and, like, getting comfortable as a spectator. And then as soon as you get, like, called into the ring, you've lost track of where I am on the list or when my cue is coming up. So it starts happening very fast. Compared to the grand scheme of the event, you know, the gate opens and then you realize like 6 minutes isn't very long, especially if you don't use all of them. Watching the fight, obviously for the first time, that was something people were talking about as soon as they get out, is like, oh, you'll start being critical of how you operated as soon as you leave the ring. All you're thinking about is what happened and what do you remember. Part of it is like a blur. Part of it, I was fuzzy for a week because I got hit in the head really hard a lot. But I do think what you're talking about in the first round, we both threw like we just jabbed at the same time, and he went back a little bit further than I did. And I think for me, like, watching it and scaling myself to see the progress of it, it's like, okay, that feels like a little percentage advantage moving forward. I will not pretend at all that I held any good form and that I made it look good. I feel like if Gumby was fat and boxing, that was me out there with the arms. But no. I do think there's a couple. It's interesting to see. So, like, one of the first things that was we had talked about, my coach and I, was like a body head combo. And when I'm here on the bag, I think I'm popping it hard and like crisp. And then when you're actually fighting somebody and you're like, oh, I'm trying to throw the body head, while somebody is like backing up and going away.
Yeah.
So what it ends up looking like is me just like wailing around like I'm trying to sell cars on the corner with the with the wobbly arm guy.
Hey, but to your
those are the
credit,
elements.
to your credit, you definitely when you woke up, because there was a couple hard shots that you took, and it seemed to wake you up. You were throwing some combinations. You know, you were the one pushing the pace, throwing the combinations. And I mentioned earlier about how you were holding your hands, and it's like I completely misread. I'm like, okay, this he's here to fight, regardless to technique or not, he's here to fight. And yeah, man, it was a hell of a performance, to see your opponent, basically, he couldn't withstand what you were bringing. Could you feel him wavering as the fight was taking place? Could you recognize that?
I definitely did not. I landed like a right hook that I think really shook him and kind of dragged him off in the corner early on. When you're watching the video, it's kind of like the only thing I would notice in that time frame. A couple of those are exciting, but for somebody with no experience, you're like, ooh, is this person rocked? And I remember I had talked to somebody, it's like, you can play those one of two ways, is that capitalize on that dazed moment, I think, and just unleash and try to finish it, or try to be a little conservative about it, because if you get caught going in a flurry thinking this person's going down, completely gassing the tank, and then having nothing by the time they come back, it's like early enough in the fight to where I didn't know his rigidity at all. It could have been over, or that could have been absolutely nothing as far as like my experience level and understanding of him were. Obviously, like there was a time when he took a count and was like hunched over. In those moments, obviously, I'm feeling very good, because there was not a moment where I was like, oh, I'm hitting him way harder than he's hitting me, or like, oh, I'm dominating this at all. One, because it wouldn't be true, because I got tuned up. I got super lucky, shout out to our cameraman, that the one time he hit me with like a 3-piece. And I think that was arguably the most damage that I took, especially in the first round. And luckily the camera was moving and I was coming backwards, so you don't see how stupid my face looked while I was getting hit. But that's it. One of the elements is like, I catch him with the right hook and I'm like, oh, this guy's having a hard time standing. I'm going to win this thing. And then, 5 seconds later, taps me 3 times and you go, ooh, three connected is as good as one good one for sure. And not knowing how that plays into the future. There was a moment where, like I said, the first time he hunched over, I'm sitting there because I don't know the sport well enough where I'm like, ooh, it's over. And then I don't know if it is or isn't. And then it wasn't. So you don't, like, I don't know. You don't get to not be tough when you're in there. But then when there's a moment where you're like, ooh, it could be over right now, and maybe I already won, there's like a gambler's high in that where you're like, oh, hell yeah. But then you got to get back in there. And even on the get back in there, he tagged me a couple times that were hard. And that's the first time when you're like, ooh, am I still doing good? When I went to the corner the first time, or even early, hearing Coyote in the corner or Darkness in the corner saying like, you're doing good. And in my ear, I'm going, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I need to hear. Like, if I was getting my ass kicked, I want you to say that either way, because I need that lie when you're in there and the clock is running, As Jay was saying, if you know hockey as a sport, hockey is exactly that way. It's like you'll be up with a minute left, and that minute is the scariest minute possible, because it doesn't matter if you've been up the whole game. If you have to go to overtime because of something that happens in the last 5 seconds, it doesn't matter what you did throughout the whole stretch. So a lot of you don't get to rest on your laurels for a couple of good hits if you land them. and with my the balance of not knowing a ton of technique and then coming in there like too many neurochemicals to be actually composed. The hits that I did land, I'm new enough at it. I felt like they looked so bad that I couldn't give myself credit for landing a good hit. So I'm just being hopeful in the midst of the fight.
You definitely did. You outputted more damage than what he did for sure. No question. You know, you kind of have to take yourself out of it and look at the fight as if it's two people you've never seen before, which can be hard to do. But you know, he had moments, but you, like I said, once you woke up, you pushed the pace. So, you know, in Street Beefs, I can't really say, you know, that we're following, you know, we're not following professional boxing rules. We're not following amateur boxing rules. You know, we're judging based off of damage. Who's putting out damage? So, you know, the guy who's out jabbing, the guy who's landing the heavy hooks, who's hurt, you know?
Yeah.
You were throwing the combinations, you know, much more convincing shots. You had him up against the cage more. There were just too many moments in which he was inactive and you were active, right? And, you know, you can just look at that off of, you know, activity on the film. But, you know, it can be hard because we're hard on ourselves, you know, especially, you know, rewatching it. It looks different from what you thought, or maybe, you know, it does match up to how you were feeling, you know, however it, you know, it tends to be, you know, it's in the past, you know, and then we look forward to, you know, the next fight and how do we utilize what we've learned, you know, and bring that to the next fight, but also how do we subtract, you know, how do we subtract the things that we saw that we don't want, you know?
Yeah.
Do we see?
I will say, it wasn't just you. I also thought your opponent was done until about the 6 count, and then I was like, oh, he's just bending over, getting his like breath back for the 8 count. But I'm with you. I thought he was done. So you're not the only one.
He threw up. He threw up, you know, on one of those counts, and yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but you know, I wasn't gonna not count him. You know.
Yeah, I think it went perfect as far as keeping it going. I think it added a really cool, like, a cool story element in it, because at some point, I thought I ate one to the face and got dropped, and then I watched the video, and I think it's the stupidest look that I've ever had in my entire life, especially because it's when the call happens. Is that I'm like, man, did I just throw a punch and fall on the fence? And then I'm on my hands and knees. So there's like a little attrition.
Oh, you slipped. Yeah, you slipped.
Yeah. Well,
it was the way you turned.
For sure.
Got you. The way you turned got you. I watched that and I was like, oh, shit.
To Tanuki's credit, I for sure had a very fuzzy brain for like a week after. So a big part of that was probably me eating a lot of punches to the face and losing my, having the vertigo and losing my trajectory.
What is Seeker's path going forward? More street beefs? What are we doing? What Seeker's path? I called you Streaker. Now you're just going to strip naked and run through Smoke Ranch. No, what is Seeker? What is Seeker's path moving forward?
When I first underwent here, I've talked about it a couple of times, but I wanted to do 12 months of something once a month to have like out of the norm comfort, just to like chronicle what the experience is, what you can take from it, and what you can learn. So initially, the idea was kind of one and done, and then maybe in the future, if that's a thing. After doing it and after training, even just like going to the gym and doing something very general, because I do a lot of different like styles of exercise, hitting the heavy bag and like minutes on the bag is my favorite cardio. there's nothing like it that I've ever experienced, where I'm like, especially in like the big box gym style, because the heavy bag corner is very small. Nobody's ever there. And when people are, it's always interesting that they are. And now that I've been brought into that ethos, I'm trying to throw hands for the rest of my life, even if it's that. I would love, this is my future projection. I have a history of head traumas, if it wasn't obvious. And I got very concussed after this fight, even though it was only like round and a half. So for me, I'm kind of, if I go back in, I want to go in where I actually train for a time period. And I was thinking maybe in the fall. And then I would also come in for my own weight and standard, like physique wise. I was probably 20 pounds overweight. I'd like to come in leaner and a little more agile, so that the damage that I do take to the head will hopefully be by somebody when I'm a lesser weight as well, that is hitting less like a hand made out of brick. And it's kind of a coin flip. Like I said, just a lot of what I do is thought-based and speaking-based, and from trying to do something like writing moving forward or journalism to cover things like these. The converse to being well-spoken, I think, is hitting yourself in the head a lot. So that's my only drawback. But what I want to do is do a second match, do just boxing, and try to hit it sometime in the fall. Like October, if you guys have an event monthly. That's what I'm looking at now. I want to train and be in shape for it either way, whether it happens or not. But I definitely want, I do feel like I got away with a fun experience. I did not put on a performance that I want to look at and be like, hey, this was your grandpa one day. I would love to have a video that's the evidence that I put in the work, I cleaned things up, and did it with a little more style. And for that, I think I have to do a secret round 2.
I like that, man. And when that time comes, we'll definitely have you back on the show, and we'll collect our minds again, and we'll talk about it and analyze it and everything. And yeah, man, I definitely can see. I can see you doing it, man. I can see you getting better, especially the name Seeker. Seeking greatness, seeking that advancement, seeking betterment for yourself. I'd love to see the maybe a rematch, but even if it's not a rematch, anybody out there. Oh, you did mention going down in weight. So actually, I mean, going down in weight, who's to say, there's a bunch of guys, in the lower weight classes. So
some of them scare me a little bit. And I think that would be, I know when I'm focused training wise, just for like endurance, running or kayaking or whatever. It's like when I really put the focus, and I know what I can make my body do cutting down wise. And I know that I was really fortunate with this experience. Like when I took it on, somebody who could teach me something just appeared. So if I can push forward, tone in a little bit, and keep in that same network of people, I think there's a lot of good resources available to me to try to push on. I don't know how you could like start a streak and not try to just see how far you could take an undefeated record. And I'm afraid that my pride is probably going to have me do that. So hopefully I will be...
Being around El Coyote helps, because he's a fucking killer.
The guy has a very hard fist, I must say, from experience. I have a piece of my face is like dented inward as a souvenir from our friendship. And it's that I love talking about him because he's the person that I knew. But he's a hometown guy, man. There's something about Riverside that is built into the name. And I really enjoy seeing somebody who is is like an icon and a character that way, and that when I got involved, there was a little element, you know, there's the Seeker or Dan Lee that is going in on his own, but then there's a part that's like, is everybody in Riverside going to think you're a bitch after this? And now it's probably closer to 50-50 instead of just 100% yes.
Yeah, man. I feel like it was a great fight. You know what I'm saying? And it can only be a better fight the next fight.
Yeah.
You know? But bro, we can't keep you here all night. It's been a phenomenal show. If you can give out any socials or any plugins or anything that you want to do right now would be the time.
If you're curious in any of the things that I'm doing, you can find me on the gram or YouTube at Dan Lee Pistol. And I'm kind of just telling a life story that way. I wouldn't say it's all fight-based, but you can see the little epochs I go through. There's always music, there's always something philosophical, and there's always a little poetry. I do think what you were saying about a rematch, it would be really cool going in the first time experience and not knowing who you're going up against until like 5 minutes, to have something built in that's like a story of a second go where Tanuki and I both do a hard cardio run, maybe take on a couple of celebrity trainers for the local region or whatever in the Vegas versus California showdown. There's definitely potential there. I think I would enjoy it tremendously, and I think he would too. I've talked to him a few times, and like I said, the people you meet out there, you remember forever. He's been very kind.
Yeah,
and thank you for having me. It was very fun to be here and talk to you both.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I had a blast.
Thanks, Jay.
Yes, sir. Well, shoot, man, if that's everything, man, thank you once again, and you have a great night.
Appreciate it, man.
Another great show, another great conversation, and you can tell that he like really takes things in when he's doing them. I don't know how to put it. Like, he really enjoys the moment of what he's doing, and I can really appreciate that, because everybody says stop and smell the roses, which is a thing we all should probably do more, and really embrace where we're at in the moment instead of thinking. I know a lot of us are like, what's next? What's next? We're working towards something. And it's like, you really forget to enjoy where you're at. And I really appreciate that about him.
I agree, man. I mean, listening to him talk about his experience going to his first event, I mean, the way he's describing it, it's like you're there. You know what I mean? You're in his shoes. You know, it's literally how it is, not only for him, but for a lot of fighters for their first time. He just described, a lot of people's first experience, and to a T, and it was great.
No, and then, like I said, as soon as you bring up Harry Potter, I'm in. Like, I'm a Harry Potter nerd, so I'm in. Anybody else who's a Harry Potter nerd, we're less than a year away from the new series, so you can be excited about that. But I won't get into a review show about Harry Potter, because we'll be here for another hour.
I can't really talk about Harry Potter. I don't know Harry like that.
You didn't watch them? Okay, don't even answer, because
I saw up to the third one, but
that's when they get better too. Is that like 4 on is where they start to get more mature.
Yeah, I wasn't the fan in the house. I just was subjected to watching.
See, for me, the books got me through. The first few books got me through a fucked up time in my life, so that was, probably why I'm hold it such high regard. But man, Seeker makes it though where you want to just, like, if you ain't never fought, he makes you want to get out there and test yourself, right? And for a minute, he has you questioning, like, am I a bitch for not fighting the street beefs? Like, am I a bitch because I didn't go to, you know what I mean? Because he's so passionate about it. You're like, man, you start questioning your own self. Like, what am I doing?
Does my hometown think I'm a bitch? What is the town?
Right. That's heavy. That's heavy. Like, because everybody I grew up with think I'm a bitch. Like,
that's funny.
But No, like I said though, I really appreciate his outlook on things, man, and it was a great conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. We keep getting the best of the best guests, man, and shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. Y'all the guests are the ones who make the show. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
And the
but
guy who gets the guests, but you know.
hey, I just ask the questions and try to sit back, you know?
Yeah,
But
but you're out there, you're analyzing, you're figuring out who to get on the show when you're out at every event because you're mingling with people. No, man, I appreciate it.
appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. But sure, we can't keep
All right,
everybody
let's get
here
up
for
out of
all
here
night.
before we get too soft.
Yeah, yeah. First and foremost, got to get the shout outs out the way. Thank you, Seeker. It was a pleasure. Everybody watching, go check out his fight. Subscribe to StreetBeefs West Coast. Subscribe to Yankee and the Brit. And catch us every time, every week, same time, same place. Shout out to you, Jay. Always helping me kill it every week. We do this. Shout out to the OG Yard. Shout out to the Dirty South. And shout out to the West Coast. We do this for y'all. Everybody watching live, everybody on replay. We do this for y'all. Thank y'all. Overtime Hustling. Appreciate you. Heart in the Fight. Appreciate you. StreetBeefs West Coast 54 going down this weekend. Dirty Boxing Tournament going down this weekend. So be on the lookout.
Well, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Street Beef, so shout out. But shout out to you, Somké, again, for all the work you put in, all the great guests, and all the great questions, and just for being a great ref. I don't know if people tell you enough, but that like what you do is so important to the West Coast. So I just want you to know that because I'm not sure that all of you who put in all the hard work get the credit you deserve. You know, because there's you, there's Tank, there's Alex, but there's Free Smoke, there's Wero, there's a ton of people behind the scenes. WA, who I've heard a ton about and never actually had a conversation with, but I already know that he's part of the backbone of Street Beefs too. So shout out to all of you for what you do, because if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to enjoy Street Beefs. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe and hang around. In about 8 minutes, Winging It'll be going live, so you don't want to miss that. One world, one love. Deuces.